Welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. This week it's John's turn to pick our featured bird, and he went with the olive-sided flycatcher. Now, John has traveled all over the world and seen so many bird species, but this one is still among one of his favorites. The funny part is that his wife, Shannon, also an ornithologist, thinks it's kind of a boring choice, so it's fun to hear them go back and forth on that. As for Amanda and me, we're still the new ones at the table, so we're all ears and excited to learn more about this flycatcher and why John likes it so much. Okay, quick 3 beers, time to grab your binoculars, and let's get into it. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. So we're going back to our format where each one of us is picking a bird for an episode, and this is John's week. And John, we're excited to hear about the olive-sided flycatcher. I feel like we've heard you talk about it in passing so many times, but don't know much about it. Know it's one of your favorite birds, so we're excited to hear why we're talking about that today.
I like you gave me an out with calling it one of my favorite birds, but people always ask you that question. They say, "What's your favorite bird?" And for the longest time, I would say, "Well, I don't really have one." And then I decided at some point, and I guess it was quite a while ago, that I would pick one, and I started thinking about it. And the weirdest thing is, to some of its extent, it comes back to we were asked to do a photo shoot with some specimen from the collection at one point, and I thought one of the coolest specimens that I could put my hands on really quickly was this mounted olive-sided flycatcher at its nest with eggs in it that was in the collection. And so that picture, which I can send to you guys after the podcast, was what I used for this black and white picture, which I was always really liked. But it's like olive-sided flycatcher, I'm ready to make the case, is a really awesome bird. And, have you guys seen them?
No, we've never seen them. So they are around here, though? You can see them?
So this is one of the things I think it has going for it. It's a member of the peewee family, and these birds literally make one of the longest migration routes of any of the tyrant flycatchers. So they breed all the way up into Alaska in coniferous forests and actually open areas along the edges of coniferous forests, and then winter down along the Andes of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, down to northern Bolivia. And so
cool.
They have an incredible migration route. And so here in Chicago, they pass through only in the spring and fall. But so that makes them interesting just for their migratory status. But I like them because they're one of the most distinctive silhouettes for me of almost any North American bird. And I was thinking about that statement and saying, well, scissor-tailed flycatchers would be pretty noticeable. Swallow-tailed kite would be pretty noticeable as a silhouette. But these birds are flycatchers. What's distinctive about them? And what's distinctive about them is they're large for a flycatcher, and they have this big head and this big bill, and then they have a kind of a chunkier body and a short tail. And then what they tend to do is sit up really high on perches almost all the time. And they sally out from those perches to catch the things they eat. And this will get, Shannon hasn't said anything yet in the sense
because I've gone to sleep, because this is the lullaby episode. That's why.
I was going to say, they have some economic benefits and personal benefits in the sense that they appear to be pretty specialized actually on wasps and bees.
Okay.
And so they eat things that would potentially sting you, which
I love
it's a good thing. Yeah.
So we have a peewee that we see pretty regularly, and it's one of our favorite that we see like on our regular walks in this forest preserve we go to. And so is like the olive-sided flycatcher is like if you saw a peewee, but like the size of a robin almost. Is that accurate? Or?
Yeah, pretty it's close sometimes.
Okay.
It sure seems like it. Robin would be a little bigger, but these are yeah. And when you look at species you might confuse it with, peewee is one of the first things that would come to mind.
Okay.
And they often do the same thing where they sit out on exposed perches and are sallying out. The vocalization.
So do you think people know what to sally out means?
No, I think that's a good question. So to sally out.
Yeah, they're catching things on the wing, and so they just go off of the perch to catch something while they're flying, The insect is flying, and then they fly back and sit on either the same or a different perch. I don't think it matters which way, but that's what sallying means.
That's awesome. I thought that was just like some eccentric term.
Yeah.
So different flycatchers go different distances, and some of them are flying out to strike at vegetation, and some of them are catching stuff out in the air column, which is what olive-sided flycatchers are doing.
Okay.
So I think that's the difference. The other thing, the other terminology I saw that I thought was interesting was they called it yo-yo flight, which is essentially going out and coming back to the same place.
Okay.
Cool. Did you see us hesitate when you said, "Do all flycatchers do that?"
Yeah.
Yeah. We will never say all do anything.
Okay.
It's like I'm constitutionally incapable of that, which is why I hated multiple choice tests or true-false tests. They're awful. For people who overanalyze things and overthink things like me, they're terrible tests. So there you go.
So we have I talked about the peewee that we have, the eastern wood peewee in our area. And there's also on our walk, this other forest preserve we go to, we see a great crested flycatcher occasionally. And it's like I feel like without Merlin or without hearing the sound, I don't know, it's hard for us to identify a flycatcher, but I feel like the olive-sided, like with its size and everything, it seems like it'd be easier to ID for like some regulars like Amanda and I. Do you think that's fair?
So I do think so, and yet at the same time, I always try to look closely at it when they can be hard to, when they're up that high and on an exposed perch. Sometimes the light isn't very good, and so you see a bird sitting up there, and you think that's going to be an olive-sided flycatcher, and I'll walk up to it, and I'll still have to convince myself. I want to look at it from a couple angles. One of the other neat things about olive-sided flycatchers is that they have these white under tail coverts, which in certain individuals or I'm not really sure whether they know for sure, but you can actually see the under tail coverts curling up around the back of the bird such that it looks like it's got these white sides to its back rump. And that's really distinctive, which is something peewee doesn't have.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing that's charming about it is that the little markings on the side make it seem like it's wearing a vest. And so that's often noticed and remarked on in field guides when they describe what that bird is. And then I won't go any further than that because John's been all over the world. He's seen everything. And he's picking one of the most dull North American birds possible. I don't understand this choice. This is going on 30 some odd years. I don't understand this choice. I don't get it.
You don't get out enough. You gotta go out.
You get out a lot. It would be one thing if I picked a boring bird, but it's another thing for you to pick a boring.
Well, I was thinking about that, and I said that I probably only see 4 to 8 of those a year, olive-sided flycatchers a year. So even coming through Chicago, there are periods of time when they're migrating through, but they're never going to be all that many of them. Right. So it's a comparatively low population bird. They have big territories on their breeding grounds. They're not gregarious at all. I have seen 2 on occasion in trees during migration in places in Chicago, but like I don't think you'd ever expect to see 3 together. So they're kind of loners, which is, I don't know, maybe that's not interesting, but it's just, I'm always excited when I go out and I look in the distance at Memorial Park Cemetery or something, and I see something at the top of the tree in spring or fall, and I can just say to myself, I'm going to walk up and that's going to be a olive-sided flycatcher. And you get up there and it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
We also haven't talked about the vocalization yet, which
I want to hear about that.
I was wondering how much that factors into how much you like it, John, is the quick 3 beers.
Well, so I always like to say they say people will say it says quick 3 beers, and what I remember it was hick 3 beers.
Oh,
both good.
Here, I'm gonna play its call real quick. Did that come through?
Yep, It's coming through beautifully, and it's just and I would point out that on migration through Chicago, I would say they often aren't calling. And so again, coming back to Shannon's concerns, maybe they are kind of flying under the radar a lot of times. But I have had situations where I've gotten out Merlin or my phone and just played the song and gotten them to respond immediately.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
So they can, yeah.
Well, they're pretty territorially aggressive. I mean, they're little, tiny balls of bursts of energy, I suppose, because they're very territorial. So I guess that's cool.
But they're territorial in these boreal forests, so all across northern Canada, and then they drop down into the western U.S. and the mountains, all the way down into Arizona. I think they're also, even though they can be common in these areas, these aren't places that people commonly go, and so I think it's a bird that a lot of people don't have much experience with, even though
they do go from sea level to the tips of the mountains and Rockies, so to like 3,500 meters. So that's rather remarkable for a bird to actually cover that kind of an altitudinal gradient. So, okay, you're making them seem a little bit more interesting, John. Or researching them did. I'm not going to go that far, Amanda.
How about this description? They were described foraging as the peregrines of the Tyrannidae.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah,
is that how you described them? Did anybody else ever describe them that way?
John's going to describe them however he wants.
That's right.
I mean, they again, coming back to with the exception of the differences in the prey types, peregrines are sitting around waiting for things to fly by and then dropping down on them and catching them. And that's a lot of what olive-sided flycatchers do, is they sit on these perches and just wait until things like wasps and bees fly through their vision, and then they'll sally out and track them down.
So you'd call that a sit and wait predator if we put the labels that people often use for these kinds of foraging behaviors. So it's a sit and wait predator.
And what are they waiting for? It's just flies, or moths, or is it any insect that's flying by? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. With the interesting caveat that they do seem to specialize on Hymenoptera, which are bees and wasps.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I had a question too about the quick 3 beers, because when we chatted yesterday, John said that like right as we were signing off, and Amanda was like, "What does that mean?" And I told her about the quick 3 beers, but we were talking more like we're not as familiar with all the like mnemonics for bird calls, and we've been out with our birding groups and have heard people just like rattle off all these different things, and it sounds like a poem or something like that. But so is this just like a way to remember what the call is, or is it because Amanda was like, it doesn't sound like quick 3 beers?
Yeah, I thought that's what
I think
he
it's
was
more
supposed
of
to be
just
saying.
like a way to you say something you say in your head to remind you what it is. Is that what it is?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, and I think with that bird, it's a perfect example of something that you're not going to hear all that often, given where we live. So when you do, you might not recognize it. So one of my favorites that way is white-throated sparrow, which is, they say it says, "Poor Tom Peabody."
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I don't get these things either. They don't, and they don't help me remember things because I'm so focused trying to figure out if that's what it actually sounds like. That when I think it doesn't sound like that, it just doesn't penetrate.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing last night. But it's not like killdeer or peewee where like it sounds like they're actually saying it. It's more of just a way to remember it, or
See,
kind of both.
Play it again, because I actually think it does sound
okay.
Like
All right.
3 bears.
That's one of the reasons why I remember it.
I don't see it.
Amanda, do you hear it?
I mean,
Not. I mean,
I think if you're thirsty for a beer, anything could sound like quick 3 beers.
Well, all right. Yeah.
true.
it's just that you'll read it in all of the species accounts. That's where you'll get it from. So
Yeah, that one definitely.
people have deludedly thought it says that for 100 years.
So I was wondering, so are those published? Like those aren't just like you guys talk about those, like somebody wrote them down?
No, they've been written down, and in field guides. And that's an interesting thing, because I think there are field guides where they try to step away from that and then actually describe that. So you could say it goes weir, or something like that. But is that any better for describing it to, I've always felt like those written descriptions leave a lot to be desired until, when you finally hear the bird.
I hear you. Yeah, and quick three bears is more fun.
I have a science question for John then, because when I was reading about this in the Birds of the World account, they talked about the bird being mostly monogamous. There's a little bit of polygyny that's been noticed genetically, but mostly monogamous. And they say in there, whoever wrote the account says because the territories are fairly large, they think that would mean they're mostly monogamous. There's not as much cheating. But I don't know if I buy that, given how territorial they actually are. I would think there are more interactions maybe than you might think across those boundaries, but I don't know.
Well, but, when you think about studies of polygyny, they're often done on birds that have really small territories because they're easier to get a big sample size on. Like going out and trying to get a huge sample size on nesting olive-sided flycatchers, I don't think has ever been done, because it would take somebody an awful lot of effort to find enough numbers to make a study. So, yeah, no, I saw that, and I can see what you're saying. And yet at the same time, I think it is interesting that these birds are often seen singly, like on migration, for instance. And I don't know whether anybody's thought about whether or not there's promiscuity is related to how often you have groups of the species together in situations like that. That's a really interesting point.
I mean, it's certainly testable. Obviously, we don't have the data to test it right now, but that is a testable hypothesis that I think would be a really interesting study for do it. Some kind of meta-analysis. I don't know if there's enough to even do a meta-analysis, which is when you combine pieces of lots of different kinds of studies. So they're not designed to answer that particular question, but there may be data that are relevant that you can kind of piece together to see if you can answer some of those questions. And it's not impossible that there's enough data to, to get maybe a week study like
maybe
that.
That somebody's already done it. So what Shannon's talking about, when genetic techniques came along, you could literally go into nests and sample the chicks and sample the mother and sample the father sometimes too. But then you could infer whether or not the young in the nest were parented by the father.
Oh, okay.
And the interesting thing to me is that when they started doing this, they found when in passerine birds. So olive-sided flycatcher is part of one side of the passerine birds called the subossines, and then the other side is the ossines, which are considered to be the songbirds, and those include a lot of the North American birds that we normally think of in the perching bird group, which are robins and thrushes and warblers and blackbirds are all ossines, but flycatchers are more of a radiation that includes, like in North America, they're mostly of South American origin. So the Tyrannidae, for instance, are almost certainly a family that originated in South America. And what we have are a few in groups like the peewees and the Epidnax flycatchers and the kingbirds that have gotten all the way, and the Myarchus flycatchers, like great-crested flycatcher, that have gotten up to North America. And so where I'm going with all this is when they looked at the regular songbirds like cardinals and thrushes and things, they've often found that extra pair fertilizations are up to about 40% of the individuals in a given nest on average.
That's a lot.
And so it's, in that sense, it seems like it's a pretty commonplace thing. And the only thing I think is interesting about that is that at some level, or the way I turn it around a little bit, and I think, what's interesting is most of those birds still have biparental care. So what that says to me is that even if the male has had knowledge that he was only parenting 60% of the offspring in the nests that he used, it was still worth it for him to do that irrespective of what was going on and the female sneaking off, I guess. So, I don't know on olive-sided flycatcher with that, what you'd find, but
So the genus Contopus is what these birds are found in, and there's, I don't know, 14 to 16 species, depending on whether you count fossils.
and
And
olive-sided flycatcher is the most brightly colored one of them.
Okay.
Oh, so it's got that going
for it. Yeah.
yeah, but they didn't actually, what the genus name means does not encompass the true boring nature of this genus of birds. So Contopus comes from contos, which means pole or shaft, and pos, which means foot. So it's like short foot. That's what the genus name stands for. We have 144 in the genus.
Oh.
How many do we have? Oh, now I looked it up, but now I don't know. I think we had 100 and something of just olive-sideds themselves. But
Wow.
But
and are
my
they
recollection.
are they from Windowkill in Illinois mostly, or do you know?
I didn't look at it from that perspective, but that's likely.
There are going to be some, but not all that many. A lot of them will have been collected. We have a really great Western collection that was assembled in the early 1900s.
Okay.
From
.org. The very first Volvo 960 for the U.S. market rolled off the assembly line on August 12, 1992.
You said SIRI something.
Oh,
yeah, but
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
That Alexa hasn't said anything for so long that I didn't even know.
Oh, that's the Alexa, not the.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
It's always listening.
I know.
And the species name is, can be hard. This is one of the ways in which taxonomies can be really hard for someone. So if you don't know much about taxonomy and you don't understand necessarily the history of taxonomy, which most people shouldn't, it's kind of a specialized thing.
Arcane.
But if you looked in our collection, you would find it under Borealis, and that's not what it's under because of lumping of genera into Contopus, which meant that the Borealis last name didn't take precedence. So they changed the last name to Cooperi. So you'll find it in most taxonomies these days under Cooperi. But if you go back to our database and search, because we use an ancient database that predates my mother's arrival on Earth, it's
oh wow,
I'm not joking.
Not completely. No, that's not true.
Some parts of it sure do.
Is that all museums or just the Field Museum?
So that's an interesting thing. It's a transition that, to be honest, a lot of museums have already made, and we're in the process of making.
Okay.
And it's again, the crazy thing is over the last 40 years or so, taxonomy has changed dramatically as the result of all the molecular work that's shown how things are and aren't related to one another.
And
so when you think
changing, right?
Yeah, you think about databases and you think how easy it is to change a database comparatively, but someone has to do all of the work. I call them equates. They have to equate species, genus A, species A with the same thing in a different taxonomy. And that takes specialized knowledge. That's actually not as easy as it sounds to suss those things out. And so you have to have a table that relates. If someone types in Contopus borealis into a database, it has to be able to return Contopus cooperi, or you would think we didn't have it. And that is not as trivial, actually, as it sounds. So you have to set your database up to do that. And then you have to be transparent and tell people what you're doing, So we are transparent and saying, look, if you want to know what taxonomy we are in, pull out the time machine and go back in time 100 years and start looking at the avian taxonomy from, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not that much. And that makes it hard to find. So if you're trying to figure out what you want to borrow from us, especially if you're a beginning student, you're just being introduced to that, it's really pretty tricky to figure out. So you need help. This is why old people are kind of useful, because sometimes our memories are stuck in 50 years ago days, so we can be useful. But yeah.
No,
databases are complicated.
Well, and it's why you need to update them and work with ways to do that. And so, for instance, we serve our data to various data portals like the Global Biodiversity Information Facility and something called iDigBio in the U.S. And in both cases, I think they've got filters that would change our taxonomy so that you would to modernize it to Contopas cooperi as opposed to Contopus borealis.
So that if you know anything about bird societies in North America, there used to be 3, the Wilson Society, the Cooper Society, and the American Ornithologist Society. And the Cooper Society, before it merged with the AOU to become the AOS. Yes, way too many acronyms. But that was after William Cooper, so it was named after one of the biggest naturalists of the day. So
cool.
But the society, so that's where the bird came from. But the society's name is from his son, who was also a really famous naturalist. So I think, I don't like nepotism, but in this case, the Cooper Society's a nepo baby.
That's good. Yeah.
But not the bird.
Don't get me started. Not the bird. Yeah, don't get me started on what I think of nepotism in sports. It won't go well for any of us.
You're not a Bronny Jr. fan?
No, I am not. Those people get advantages that other people don't, and I do not like it. I think they should find themselves in some other field and not taking advantage of what their mommy or their daddy has enabled them to do. So no, I don't. I've seen that played out in hockey way too many times. And if my brother ever listens to this, he's going to laugh at me because this is a family joke. This triggering of me by the last names of other people. Yeah.
So I
I'll
had a
leave
question
it alone.
about.
Maybe.
Just going back to names, olive-sided, does that refer to the color olive on its side?
Yeah, so it's got this vested appearance where there are olive feathers down the side of the breast and a light stripe in the light area in the middle. Okay. And the only thing I would say on that is I've done a lot of birding and every once in a while I'll find myself looking at an eastern wood pewee in the spring that's sitting up someplace, and I'll be trying to decide if I think it's actually got a little bit of a vest, and I think they do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So it's just, but again, this is a really interesting bird in the sense that if we put out a specimen of eastern wood pewee next to an olive-sided flycatcher, you'd be able to see that it's notably different in various features. I mean, so one of the things that's interesting about it is its tail is much shorter for its body size than a lot of other birds. And that's one of the reasons the silhouette seems so different. And I was thinking about that because, in general, if you're a bird that's flying out to catch things on the wing, I think the general dogma would be that you're going to have a long tail to be more maneuverable. So you think about things like bee-eaters in Africa, or swallow-tailed kites, or swallow-tailed fork-tailed flycatchers, or scissor-tailed flycatchers. They kind of look like, that's kind of the classic thing I think of when I think of things sallying out to catch stuff. But this has a really short tail. And I was thinking about how I spent a couple weeks in Peru not long ago, and we were going up and down the river, and there's a puff bird called swallowing puffbird in across Amazonia, and it has the same feature in the sense that it's got this kind of big head, short tail, long wings, and it sits up on these high perches, flies out and catches stuff on the wing, and it's completely unrelated to olive-sided flycatcher.
Oh, cool. Huh.
I think olive-sided is trying to jazz the bird up a little.
You think olive is a jazzy color?
Yeah, compared to what it actually is, some olives are pretty bright in color. This thing could be called dull-sided kingfish.
Okay.
Dull-sided.
About that.
No, it couldn't, because that would overlap with some of the names for the peewees, which are often things like blackish peewee and smoky peewee. I don't know. They're an incredibly dull set of birds, as Shannon pointed out.
Until they open their mouths, and then they're distinguishable by what they sound like. So
yeah. All right. Well, I think we're getting close on time for this one. Is there anything else on olive-sided flycatcher, John or Shannon, that you want to touch on?
Hick 3 beers. Bird.
Do better, John. Do better.
No, I thought that was a good one. And we do have a mailbag question too. So I'm going to read that real quick. So this is from Matt. And Matt says, "Hi, all. On my road trip this past week, I stopped at the Field Museum and made sure to check out the kingfisher exhibit. I had no idea most species nest in underground burrows. I also took a drive 2 hours west of Chicago to a tall grass prairie preserve called I think it's Nachusa Grasslands.
Yep.
Nachusa? Okay. Their main allure is a herd of American bison, which were reintroduced to the area in 2015. I'm a fairly new fan of terrestrial megafauna. I always thought mammals were kind of overrated, LOL. But now bison bison are incredible.
That's awesome.
Barn swallows have become a new favorite of mine, and there was no shortage of them around the Welcome Center. But I must say their mud/spit nests are kind of gross. But being dive bombed by them, by the protruded parents, was exhilarating. Speaking of gross, I was also lucky to see a male blue grosbeak in the pasture. Was wondering if any of you have visited Nachusa, as it was beautiful. Thanks, Matt.
Well, Matt's now my most favorite person. The idea that he came into the Field Museum to see that exhibit, I think it makes me very happy. And next time he should send us an email and we'll come and say hi to him. So, I mean, all of our listeners should do that. We're not that hard to find. Send us an email. But I haven't been there, I don't think. I've been to other prairie restoration places in the state of Illinois, but not there. Have you been there before? I looked at videos online and pictures online, and it's absolutely beautiful. There's all these prescribed fires. The volunteers who volunteer there completely love what they get to do. I mean, who doesn't want to go and burn things down in a prescribed and careful way that actually benefits the ecosystem? But yeah, there's 180 species of birds there. There's this really cool rare turtle that's there, Blanding's turtle. Cool. So it seems pretty nice. And I don't know why we haven't been there. I haven't been there. You might have, John.
I've been to Medewin, which is another big prairie in that direction, south of the city, and I haven't not been to Nachusa, and buffalo are obviously just an incredible legacy of what this area west used to look like.
Yeah.
And so the megafauna thing is incredibly important. I wanted to circle back to the fact that he talked about the tunnel nesting of belted kingfisher, because I think what he saw in the exhibit, which I absolutely love, is we have something called the Harris Loan Program, which is a set of boxes of taxidermied birds and mammals and plants too from the Midwest that are in these 2 foot by 2 foot wooden boxes that date to the 1940s or so when they were put together, and they've pulled one out for belted kingfisher for the exhibit, which belted kingfishers will dig holes in sandbanks that are 6 to 10 feet deep.
Oh, wow.
And they'll lay their eggs at the base of that, at the back of the hole. And so this little Harris loan box captures a scene of an adult coming into the tunnel with 4 chicks waiting to be fed. And it's just absolutely beautiful work.
Cool.
Just
awesome.
Yeah, and those are available for teachers. Yeah, it's inside the exhibit. Cool. And those are available for teachers to loan. So you can become a member. I think it's open. It was closed for a long time while COVID didn't help. But because it was being renovated and databased effectively. But you can take them into your classroom if you're a Chicago public school teacher, for example.
Well, they certainly used to do it. I think there's some issues with arsenic right now that they're worried about.
Well, there are other boxes you can
Yeah.
There are other boxes you can check out. We
but I
made a
just
DNA one, for example.
Right.
When we opened the DNA Discovery Center, we made a DNA Harris Sloan box, which was a lot of fun to work with those people to make that.
I love just that he said it's 2 hours outside of Chicago, or around 2
Well,
hours.
amazing.
I don't think if you went right now, it would take you 2 hours to get there.
With no traffic.
we
it's a reminder.
all
Like,
live
I
on
mean,
the north side.
I always forget about how much cool stuff is, you can do in a day. It's like, you think you know everything around you, and you find out about somewhere, I could just make a day trip there, Amanda, and I could go there on a Saturday or something and see some buffalo. I don't know. It's fun just learning about new places around you, and it's awesome to always find, like, there's always somewhere new to go try out. So I'm glad Matt brought that up.
Yeah, the
for sure.
Nature Center looks really nice online, and there's trails around it. So I think it's a place we should go.
Very cool.
Let's do it. Yeah. Matt should meet us there.
Yeah, he didn't say where he lived, did he? So
He didn't. I think he's written to us before. I think he's somewhere out on the East Coast.
Oh, cool.
But
Okay.
I'm not exactly
Well, next
sure.
time,
Yeah.
Matt, make sure you get in touch with us.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody want to close it out on this one? John, it's your bird. Do you want to close it out?
Yeah, I think I made my case, and if anybody disagrees, let us know, and I'll be free to
Shannon's raising her hand.
duke it out with. It's a great bird.
All right. Thank you to everyone for listening. We continue to get great feedback from you all, so thank you for being a part of this with us. You all are the reason why we do this, so thank you for listening and following along. See you all next week. We love you all. Thanks.